The first part was an introduction. Now, in the second section, I'm going to explain to you the anatomy of a web API. Let's see. We should know what we are expecting from an API. As I have written here, we are expecting from an API to be able to handle a simple CRUD at least. Then, what does a CRUD mean? Don't worry, I'm going to explain. Have a look. CRUD means something like a container which gives you at least 4 functionality: creating, reading, updating, and deleting. Very simple. Now, let's have a look at this. Slowly, we should talk about API, web API. Imagine you have a server, host, something like that. The API would be hosted inside your server. So, the web API is a place to keep some functions. An API needs a name. Imagine that you gonna work on student informations. So that API needs a name. We call it a student API, sales API, customers API, teachers API, whatever. So, since I said the API should be like a container to keep the functions, let's have a look at the next presentation. See, my application with a simple HTTP call would send a request to the server. My web API would be hosted inside the server. So, based on my request, the routing should send my request to one of these 4 commands. Let's say command, method, something. I might need to create or read or update or delete, record something against the database, for example. So, we call each activity in an API a verb. So, let's have a look at the verbs inside a web API. When I want to create, most of the time, when I want to create, I gonna use post. When I want to read, I gonna use get. When I want to update, as I said again, most of the time, I gonna use put. When I say most of the time, this means there might be kind of exceptions. When I want to delete, I gonna use delete method to be able to delete a resource from a database, something on the server. So, let's come back. As I said, the API needs a name. So, in the next chapter, we gonna have a look at how we can have an API inside ASP.NET. Then, by creating a container and assigning a name, I can have different methods to deal with what? To deal with a concept like a CRUD. So it seems in the next chapter we can open Visual Studio and do something real, and then it would be a very big start to talk about Web API more and more. Thank you so much.